Hey everyone.
I'm Jane.
I'm kidding.
As you know, my name is Pat. It's that time again. It's time for another episode of the Kinky Christian Podcast. All right. We're going to try to bring this in now. So, welcome everybody to another episode of the Kinky Christian Podcast. I'm your host, Pat, and along with me, as always, is my beautiful kitten who is thinking about cockaballs.
As always.
As always. So, we are going to do something kind of a little different this episode. As you can see, we got new studio, new surroundings, new settings. So we're trying to get used to this. But so we appreciate you. I mean, that's why we've been gone for a while, is trying to get everything set and going in the new studio. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. We're going to try this, and what happens, happens. Right?
Pretty much. I mean, they take it or
leave it.
Or move on.
So, in this episode, we want to talk about something that was asked to us by one of our followers. We were asked what it looks like or what it means or how do you function as a Christian Dom? And I thought, wow, that's an excellent question. So we're going to touch on that today in this episode on what it means to be a Christian Dom. As I was thinking about this question and as I was trying to prepare for this and we were talking about it and figuring out what it means, we kind of came to the conclusion that it's not so much a matter of being a Christian Dom as much as it is having a Christian dynamic.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So to be a Christian Dom, you should, and it's going to be easier to have a Christian sub, because especially one that has the same values and beliefs that you have, because Christianity has, for whatever reason, broadened, and everyone's got their own little tweaks on it. So you want to find someone that has the same Christian values that you do.
Makes it easier.
Makes it much, I mean, in any relationship.
Yeah.
Period. Any relationship, your values need to align with each other in your faith, in your morals, in your life, in your goals. Mm-hmm. You kind of want to align as much as you can. Not that you're going to be perfect. You're never 100% aligned with everything. That's what makes it fun. However, you want to be as close as possible because, if you stop and think about it, if in anything, let's use children, for instance. If I believe in spanking children or grounding children, and you believe in timeouts and letting them run amok, then we're going to have difficulties because we're going to be at odds in what we're trying to do with our kids.
Correct.
So, first and foremost, don't look at it as being a Christian Dom or a Christian sub. Look at it as developing a Christian dynamic. Now,
Or relationship,
yeah. Whether you're in BDSM and Power Exchange or not, a Christian relationship.
Yeah, the foundation has to be there first before you can move forward with a dynamic, because
Now, when you say foundation, you're talking just a relational foundation or
Yes.
a Christian foundation?
A Christian relational foundation. If
Okay.
you are looking for a Christian power exchange, then the foundation of your relationship needs to be based on your Christian beliefs.
Correct.
And if you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to move forward with a passionate, workable, what you want power exchange dynamic, because you're still going to have that conflict there. It doesn't matter if it's a Christian dynamic or a regular dynamic, if you're not in line, then
Sync.
in ha ha
Bye, bye, bye.
oh come on, then it's not going to work.
Right.
I feel like I was rambling and I made no sense.
No, you made
But
plenty
that's
of
okay.
sense.
It'll be all right.
I would say we get paid by the hour to do this, but we don't.
No.
So, but no, that's 100% correct. You have to be lined up with
Yeah.
your values. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a power exchange or not, you have to be lined up with your values.
Yep.
Otherwise, it creates havoc.
Right. I mean, for
How
example,
many people break up over the way they raise their kids or financial beliefs or
agreed. You know, and from the power exchange perspective, you know, if you in your Christianity have values set one way, and then you move into your dynamic, and then now things start changing and you start going against what your biblical beliefs are because you get, you know, deep into the dynamic and you start losing the Christianity part of it, then next thing you know, you're going against your marriage and things start getting ugly.
burnt cake.
Burnt cake.
Burnt cake, man.
We don't want burnt
We
cake.
don't want burnt cake.
No.
So, that being said, how do you be a Christian Dom? A Christ following Dom? How do you be a Christ following submissive? It's going to sound kind of cliche, but it's actually it's an easy thing to do. Read the Bible. You read the Bible, find out what God says about relationships, about sex, about everything, and that will tell you exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, how to live your life.
How to live your life. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, and we'll elaborate more, give you some more ideas, but to really dig into it, if you read the Bible, that's going to help you. Having read the Bible through multiple times, and I'm working on another time because I love reading the Bible, I will tell you this. To sum it all up in an easy way, God tells us, he gives us a list. When he gives us the law, he gives us a list of sexual rights and wrongs. The list is pretty extensive and pretty specific about what we can't do. In my opinion, because God told us in the Bible, I am the same today, yesterday, and forever. So if the Bible is telling me this is what I should not do, then this is what I should not do. If he doesn't tell me I shouldn't do it, then in my opinion, I'm okay to do it. He tells us don't step outside our marriage. So I don't step outside my marriage. He tells me don't have sex with family members or animals, so I don't do that. It's very detailed. So read the Bible, but if you want some guidance, because I know when you ask that question, you're looking for more specific answers. What I will tell you is this. God calls us as husbands to love our wives as we love the church. Or as Christ loved the church. Sorry about that. As Christ loved the church. And Christ laid down his life for us. And we are the church. The church ain't a building. The church is the body. That's the people. He laid down his life for us to pay the price for our sins. That's how much you should love your wife. So Christ protected us from our sins, so we should protect our wife. Christ he came here so that we could have life in abundance. We should do that with our wife. If you want to spank your wife and she wants it, the Bible doesn't say don't do it. The Bible doesn't tell us, Christ says no floggers,
Good thing.
right? If you want to choke your wife, pull her hair, if you want to, what else do we do? Tie her up. She likes to be tied up. Go for it. To be a biblical dom is, in my opinion, and here's for me where the rubber hits the road. To be a biblical dom is no different than being a biblical husband. You bring your faith into your dynamic, into your power exchange dynamic. You lead your spouse and your family. If you have kids, lead them. You lead them in a God-honoring way. You protect them. You provide for them. You know, not only did Christ die for us, he lived for us. He did not have to come down here and live this life, but he did, right?
Correct.
So he lived for us and he died for us. Do that for your wife, for your spouse. Protect her, love her, lead her, live for her, die for her. You know, and the rest of it is pretty much self-explanatory. We were talking in the shower today as we were preparing for this, and I like to use analogies. If you've been a fan of the show at all, you know I use analogies, even garbage men analogies, which sometimes my analogies fail epically, but they're not all great. But we're talking, and it's kind of like baking a cake, and this is why we said we don't like burnt cake. God gives us the recipe to make the perfect cake. He tells us what ingredients to use. He also tells us what ingredients not to use. Tells us the temperature we need to cook it at, for how long we need to cook it. He gives us everything we need to make the perfect cake. And if we make that cake by his instructions every time, that cake is going to be amazing. Every time. Now, the cake, look at the cake as your relationship. So if you follow his instructions and do what you need to do in the relationship, it's going to be perfect every time. He tells you, don't use arsenic, don't put anything that's going to harm you into the cake. So he tells us what all don't put into the cake. After that, he doesn't say what you can't, use frosting, or you can't use sprinkles, or you can't, put confetti, make your funfetti cake, or whatever it is. You can do all that. So you can make that cake, you can add to it how you want to, as long as you don't add the stuff that he says don't add. You can add all this other stuff. You may like the cake, you may not like the cake. But if you don't like it, you can, change it for the recipe the next time. But if we go outside of that, the cake is horrible. If we add the things that God says don't add, you don't want to substitute dirt for the chocolate powder. That's going to be horrible. That's going to ruin your cake. And you add all these other things that God says not to add, you're going to ruin your relationship. Agree? Mm-hmm. So the cake is your relationship. Now, there's external forces too, and that's the time and temperature that you bake the cake at. So we have external forces. You have
and altitude depending on where you live.
That is true. Location.
Agreed.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you have the not just the altitude, but humidity. I'm serious. It all affects a good cake.
It does.
So God tells us how to do this, and that's your external stuff. That's stepping outside that marriage. These are external forces that can affect the cake. If you cook that cake at too hot or too long, it's going to burn that cake. And once you burn that cake, you can add all the icing and funfetti and chocolate that you want inside. When you bite it, that's going to be nasty, and that's what happens to the relationship if all these outside forces get involved. and you try to hide it and cover it up, if you have an affair and you cover it up with more love, it's still nasty on the inside. So just think of your relationship as baking a cake. Follow God's recipe. Don't add the stuff he says don't add. But if he doesn't tell you you can't add it, then try it.
If you want to.
If you want to. You don't have to. God's cake recipe is perfect the way he tells us to make it. But he gives us room to add other cool things to make it better, to make it to our liking, because he knows we all have different tastes. That's the way he made us. Mm-hmm. So, as a Christian Dom, you protect, you provide, you lead and guide, you live and you die for. Though I am her Dom and her master, as Jesus served us, he was our master, but he served and washed feet, and I take care of her.
Yeah.
I focus everything on her. Now, on the other end, as a Christian sub, what do?
Obey.
Okay. Whether you want to or not. Some people call that a brat.
I wasn't going to go there, but, now that we have.
Now that book's been opened up, let's read page 1.
Yeah. I'm not a brat. So as a sub / slave, you and as a wife, at least from my perspective and how I choose to live my life, I'm a caretaker. So I make sure that his needs are met. The children, even though they're now all grown, I still
children and grandchildren.
Yes, I still try to make sure that their needs are met. Usually, it's emotionally or speaking wisdom into them,
but you also feed them.
Yeah,
you love on them. You feed them. You
help them go potty.
Help them go potty. Wipe their butts.
So, and when you get old, I will probably do the same thing to you.
Oh, I know you'll be wiping my butt.
So,
I ain't gonna let some stranger wipe my butt. I don't like people around me when I'm pooping.
I know.
that's my private time, man. You shut that bathroom door and you walk away. You leave the house.
That's because you are not the mother. And yeah. Anyway, squirrel. So, I make sure that it's the little things that I do that really matter. I make his lunch for the next day and make sure he has water and
set out my clothes.
Set out your clothes, wash your back, So I take care of him. And
she cleans my ears.
Because I'm a good little slave. And that's something that we decided to do, not only in our dynamic, but in our marriage.
Oh, yeah, long before we got into the lifestyle.
Yeah. So that whole aftercare aspect of having a scene, it's already ingrained in us. Way before we started into the dynamic. So it came very naturally to us.
Well, actually, though, when you stop and think about it, when you look at some of the things, not just that we adopted in our lives, but a lot of people call it like old-fashioned or outdated or whatever, a lot of the things that we incorporated, I opened doors for her.
Yes, unless I'm naughty.
Unless she's naughty. But she knows, do not open that door. That is something I do. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't do that, When we walk anywhere where there's like traffic or vehicles, she knows be on the inside. Mm-hmm. Don't walk on the side by the vehicles or by where people are walking by. I will put myself on that side, but she knows which side to walk on.
Yeah. It's instinct depending on, like, you cross the street, you move.
You move to the other side.
Yep.
When we sleep, I will sleep on the side of the bed, no matter what. When we travel, it doesn't matter, closest to the door. So there's just things that we do instinctually that are like incorporated into the dynamic. It's just something that,
Well, and also my training.
you know,
So my training in Kimpo has also been kind of ingrained into our dynamic because I would come home from class and we would.
then she'd come home and try to put a whipping on me. I say try just because I want to sound manly. No, she came home and put a whipping on me.
But it demonstrated to you that when we are not together for whatever reason, I have an appointment, I'm out doing whatever, I'm at work, I'm whatever it is, where we're not together, you have the safety and the knowledge to know that if something were to happen, I could take care of myself.
All right.
So we incorporate things like if he's not there, I'm watching the door. I make sure that I'm always in a position that I can see that door. And I try to stay away from the road as much as I can. So it's just things that we've
Right.
brought in and learned as a couple.
Yeah. Now, something I'm gonna toss a word out there, and this is kind of a trigger word for a lot of people.
Uh-oh.
Submit.
Oh, yeah, I had a hard time with that word.
Submit. God calls women, submit to your husband.
A lot
How do you
of that.
feel about that?
I mean, now I'm okay because
Okay, but before you became a submissive and a slave,
there was no way. It wasn't happening.
you say that, but yet you begrudgingly did it. Our marriage. I mean, that's kind of part of what led us down the path to where we almost got a divorce.
Exactly.
Because and here's the odd thing. Our relationship now really isn't much different as far as dominance and submissive. I mean, we do a lot more different things because we never did scenes and all that, but the power exchange dynamic portion of our relationship is not much different now than it was 15 years ago.
I disagree with that.
Well, let me finish. Other than the fact that you now willingly and wantingly do the things that you begrudgingly did before.
There's a whole lot more wrapped into that whole thing. You're just like glazing over.
It is a flyover,
It is a huge flyover.
but as we said, these things came natural to us because we've been doing them the whole time.
True.
You know, when you look at our relationship from the outside looking in, if you did not know all the things that we've shared, the problems we've went through, and what we're into, the vast majority of people would not see a difference.
Probably not. The key here is consent.
Right. Like I said, you are willfully and wantingly doing the stuff now that you begrudgingly did before.
We won't go into the backstory of that today, but
No, I'm just saying. When you look at our relationship from the outside,
from the outside, yeah, I can see it from the outside. From the inside,
well, of course, the inside, everything, there's tons of things that are different from the inside.
yeah.
you know. So you're giving me that look.
Struck a nerve. That
Push the button there, kitten.
Yes, sir. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you need to talk offline?
No, I will be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I may, want to slit your throat in your sleep, but,
Nothing out of the ordinary.
nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
No. I'm kidding.
So,
A little.
A little. There's always a little truth in it, right?
There's always a little truth.
So to answer the question, again, being a Christian dom is going to be follow your faith. You know, that's what you got to do is follow your faith. God leaves us a lot of room to enjoy sex, to enjoy our lives. He gives us a list of what we shouldn't do. Other than that, you should be good. So remember, God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, you know. He knew when he wrote the Bible, or when he was inspiring men to write the Bible, he knew the vast majority of us through time, from the time all these writings were, he knew we would not research or even have the ability to research what was going on at the time something was written or how it means something different today. He knew that the words he put in there were going to be, I've just lost the word I was looking for.
And you're asking the one with the brain problems to recall your words.
Tell me what word I'm trying to think of. He knew that it was good, relevant. That's the word I was looking for.
Hey, look, you did it all by
I
yourself.
did it by
Good
myself.
boy.
I'm a big boy now. He knew that what he said then would be relevant today and tomorrow. That's why he kept it pretty simple. You know, a lot of people.
I don't know that there's a lot of simplicity in the Bible, but that's my own personal opinion. Just saying.
Okay, you don't have you got your opinion.
I most certainly do.
Yeah. So I'll give you, for instance, I was speaking with someone who is a theologian, really nice. I enjoyed talking to him so much. There might be a time in the future I talk to him where he might actually come on the show with us. So I think that would be super to have him on. I don't want to say his name or call him out or anything, but know that I had a really excellent conversation with him. And we were talking about the whole biblical submission thing. And he was explaining to me, because he went and studied, you know, he's a theologian. He studied all this, you know, the history of it all. And so he was educating me, and man, he knows a lot. So that's why I'm going to be excited to get him on. But we talked about biblical submission, and he was talking about how back in the time when this was written, most marriages were arranged. It wasn't, oh, I fell in love with so-and-so and now we're off to, you know, elope in Vegas or anything. It was an arranged marriage to strengthen families, you know. They were like power moves. And if you happen to fall in love, that's fine. So he was saying at that time, that's why God said, you know, men, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and women, submit to your husbands. Was because there wasn't the intimacy and the connection back then, which that's great information, and I love talking to this man about it. So I'll probably continue to get information from him, but
It put context.
it puts context into what was going on back then. How what I'm saying though is now when you say it, it still holds true and is relevant today, even though our context in which we're living in is different. Those words still hold true. Yes, there are not near as many arranged marriages. We do it for love nowadays, but still.
Depends on your culture.
I said not near as many, you know.
It still depends on your culture.
Okay, but back then every culture was doing it.
How do we know? Was it happening in the U.S.?
Probably. Who knows?
I mean, I don't know.
Anyway.
Hey.
So, but it still holds true today. We should love our wives as Christ loved the church, and women should submit to their husbands. You need to understand what biblical submission is, though. It's not, you know,
Bow down and
bow
let
down
him.
and let them walk all over you.
Yeah. That is not okay.
No, it's he's the leader. Follow him, whether you agree or disagree. If he's following God and he doing what he believes is correct, support and follow him. Submit to him in his decisions, to his leadership. That's what biblical submission is. That's what biblical submission will always be.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have a voice.
No, not at all. In fact, the vast majority of the times, the vast majority of the time, you're going to talk it out and figure out what's best for your family between the two of you.
Right.
However, if we get to a point, she's like, I don't know. You decide. Whatever you decide, we'll do.
And you'll do the same for me too. Like if it's something that I am extremely passionate about and you're kind of like,
Yeah, you decide.
then yeah. I have
I
have the freedom to do.
We know where our strengths lie.
Correct.
We know, and
We better by now.
one would hope, right? But we both also have the best intention of our lives, our marriage, and our family in mind when we make decisions.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And I know there are a lot of times God speaks to her about something that he does not speak to me about, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So by being a good leader, I can empower her to make the decisions that I can't make.
Yes.
So that's biblical submission. And yes, back then it meant something different. But that's why he wrote it as simply as he did. Love your wife as Christ loved the church and submit to your husband. That's a pretty simple phrase.
I don't know that I would agree that it meant something different. It still means the same. It was just
Well, but back
the
then,
meaning behind it. Like the
situations were different because women
Right.
were not always in love with their husbands and did not want to submit to what the husband wanted.
Yeah, I can relate.
How can you relate? You're the one who wanted this dynamic. You wanted to be a slave.
Listen, there was a time when there was no way I was submitting to you or obeying you. Wasn't happening.
You're going to be stuck on this for a long time now. I can see that. The rest of this weekend's going to be hell for me.
You open that box.
So that's, I know we've talked about a lot of stuff and we've squirreled a lot and we've kind of rambled a lot, but that's really it. To be a biblical dom or biblical sub, or to have a biblical dynamic, power exchange relationship, follow God. Love your wife, protect her, provide for her, live for her, die for her. Do these things and feed her needs. If she needs to be flogged or if she needs to be tied up, there are dynamics that the woman likes to be treated like furniture or an animal, or it feeds them. And Christ tells us, don't withhold yourself, or it will be sought elsewhere. So if you withhold what they need, and not just your wife, if the wife is withholding from the husband, the spouse will seek that what they're seeking elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's when you go outside the marriage, and that's when you burn the cake. And
Don't
nobody
burn the
wants to
cake.
eat burned cake.
No, that's no fun.
So follow those things and lean into God. He will tell you. Now, another thing to think about is some people, for instance, I've yet to find in the Bible, and I've never really looked for it hard, but I've yet to find anywhere in the Bible where it says like gambling is a sin. But addictions can be sinful, can cause you to sin. So just as drinking alcohol is not a sin, but drunkenness is.
Correct.
So be mindful that what works for you may not work for everyone else. And that's another thing that can be difficult. For instance, in our relationship, in our dynamic, she likes to be choked.
Yeah.
I say that smile like, oh yeah. Right now I have an issue with choking. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid I'm gonna hurt. We've taken classes on it, and I know the right way to do it, and I know I understand all that, but I'm still having a problem. So she has to understand that that is not something I can give her right now. So know your
Limits.
not just your limits. Yeah, I mean your do's and your don'ts. Understand, but do your best to feed what your spouse, whether they're the dom or the sub, feed what they need, and work on, like, I'm working on being able to choke her. She also likes to be tied up. I suck at role play. It is not in me. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and tying knots is not one of my strengths. So I find other ways to give her role play. You know, I can't. She'll probably never be my rope bunny, and I'll never be some rigger or anything. But I try to give her what she needs. So that's how you be a Christian dom and a Christian sub. Is just feed into each other, feed into your relationship with God first and foremost, and let everything else, pray, listen to the promptings that God tells you, respect each other. Everything's consensual. And one more thing, I was also talking to another friend of the podcast, and if you want to learn more about Christian BDSM, not so much power exchange, but he does a great job on Christian BDSM, and he has a cool website and Facebook page. So check out christianbdsm.com. And on Facebook, it's Christian BDSM. Great stuff. He delves into a lot of things that we haven't even begun to cover yet. So I will link his web page and his Facebook page down below, so you can click on it. But yeah, christianbdsm.com, and on Facebook it's Christian BDSM. Check him out. Amazing. I'm going to try to get him on the show at some time too. Both of these people I've been in touch with have said, yeah, they, at some point they may be able to come on the show. They're just not at that point yet. So
We're all busy.
well, that amongst other things going on, However, just two great guys that I've been interacting with and love them to death. So anyway, I think we've rambled on enough. I hope that answers your question about being a Christian dom and having a Christian dynamic. If it doesn't, hit us up and we can talk more, answer specific questions that you have. We're always open to it. You can hit us up at the Kinky Christian. Remember, it's the Kinky Christian Podcast at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Kinky Christian Podcast. You can make comments below, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the little bell. We got behind and putting out episodes because we're remodeling the studio, and then we had some life things happen, and our computer systems went down. It's just been one thing after another. So
welcome to the real world.
Yeah. And we are also going to start to kind of, help understand what the Bible says about sex and relationships. So we're going to start doing I guess we'll call it a series, where we're going to go through the entire Bible, and we're going to pull out all the verses that talk about sex, that talk about relationships, and talk about everything. And we're just going to lay it all out, so what the Bible says about this and where we get our beliefs and our faith from.
To the best of our ability.
To the best of our ability, yeah. I mean, and our understanding of it. And you got to remember, we think God kept everything kind of simple so we would understand what he's saying. He knew the vast majority of us would never be theologians. He knew we wouldn't be able to study the history of everything. So he wanted us to have the basics for a relationship with him. And that's what the Bible is. Sorry, I'm talking so much, I'm getting cotton mouth.
You're welcome.
So it's a basics for a relationship, and so we're gonna do that. It'll probably be scattered. It won't be just every episode from here on in is gonna be that until we're done. We're gonna scatter that in between topics that we want to discuss to break up the monotony, but know that it's coming. We're pretty excited about it. We're gonna just throw episodes in there as we go through the Bible and pull them all out and let you in on our journey with that.
It's awful nice of you.
Of us. It's an us thing.
Yes, Master.
So thanks again. Thanks for your patience. That was taking forever to get this episode out. We're gonna try to not let that happen again. I can't. I'm choking up.
I'm sorry, are you choking on a cinnamon?
Choking on something.
On that note, we need to go.
We need to go. So until next time, people, take care of each other and take care of yourselves. God bless.